Welcome to the Cope and Chill podcast with Ron Martin, where every week we explore practical approaches to self-care and self-healing for better mental and emotional health and well-being. This podcast is about self-discovery, self-care, self-healing, and personal growth. My intention is to help you learn to become more self-aware, empower you with knowledge, and help you face and overcome personal challenges to having an emotionally healthier life. Join me as we embark on a path towards greater inner peace, resilience, and happiness. Welcome, everyone, to the Cope and Chill podcast. I'm Ron Martin, and today we have an absolutely fabulous guest. I'm so excited to share this interview with you. We're going to be talking to Monica Bright, and Monica is a master yoga teacher in the areas of anatomy, self-massage, injury, and recovery strategies. With over 2,000 hours of training in yoga and human movement, she continues to cultivate a deep love for the human body. Monica has co-led multiple yoga teacher trainings in the city of Chicago. She owns an online yoga studio with students from around the world. She offers courses for in-depth learning and is a business coach for yoga teachers, teaching them how to build successful, resilient, and sustainable careers as they learn to teach exactly what they love. She's facilitated workshops on movement and injuries prevalent in yoga and led anatomy trainings and hosts international yoga retreats. I want to go to those. I want to go to some of those. Before becoming a yoga teacher, she enjoyed a 15-year career as an educational consultant working with school districts around the country. Monica has taken the skills she's acquired in yoga and education and combined them together to create a career that teaches students and teachers on a deeper level so that yoga becomes a lifelong practice for them as well. And today, she's going to share with us what yoga has meant to her and why she's so dedicated to the practice and how it's such an important part of her self-care. So without further ado, here's Monica. Monica, welcome, and thank you for joining us on the Cope and Chill podcast today. It's so very nice to have you. You and I have known each other for a little bit. I've come to you, I guess I had some ailments going on, and you developed a very comprehensive and helpful plan to help me overcome what I was challenged with. And in working with you, I found you to be super knowledgeable, super passionate about what you do, very, very into the mind-body connection. And it's just wonderful. I just thought it would be awesome to have you on the show. So maybe you could start by telling us a little bit about your journey, your path. You're a yoga practitioner and instructor currently. How did you become that? Where did you start?
Yeah, that's a great question. First, I want to say thank you, Ron, so much. I'm delighted to be here to be able to talk to you. In our conversations, in our sessions, they were always so fluid. And so it was kind of natural that it led us to here. So again, thank you for having me. So the path to becoming a yoga teacher and a yoga practitioner is kind of a winding path. So when I was a young child, this is not a super long story, but when I was a young child, my mother had me in dance classes, and I was in the dance group in college. So I've spent all of my life moving, and just enjoying moving and being connected with my body. And so when I graduated from college and went to graduate school, I needed something for stress relief because it was a lot. And so I started taking yoga classes. They were in the gym, so they're not like the fancy studios that we have now with like adjustable lighting and soft curtains and all of that. It was smack in the middle of the gymnasium. So it was kind of a different experience, but it also gave me the opportunity to reconnect to my body, right? And deal with the stressors of graduate school and higher education. And I sort of lost my practice for a little bit, a few years after that, and then started practicing at home via online yoga
Mhm,
because
mhm.
it was just easy and accessible. And I had young children at that time. And so, I didn't have to be gone for hours just for a class. I could just take a class in the living room, Um,
The wonders of
and
the internet, right?
I know, right? Right. And this is back in what, around 2003.
Mhm.
Um, and so I reconnected with my practice, and a good girlfriend of mine was taking some time off from schooling, and she said, "Hey, you want to go to a yoga studio together?" And I was like, "Yeah, sure." And so we started going together. I think we used it as a time for us to spend time together and enjoy each other's company. But in the classes, we both got what we needed from those classes. Um,
When you say you got what you needed, tell me more about that. Because originally you talked about you first got into it as a way to reconnect with your body and as a way of managing stress. But I mean, obviously, being a mother of young children, that can add a fair amount of stress too. But what was it um, at this time? What did it mean to you, and how did it
yeah,
help you?
yeah. So because this was after I'd had my children, or at least my oldest daughter now. Um, any woman could understand this, and I'm sure men could understand this as well. But um, during pregnancy, give share your body with another human. After pregnancy, I nursed my daughters, so it's still giving of my body. And so in these classes, it was a different kind of reconnection with my body, right? It's hopefully not to sound selfish, but a way to take back my body and have it for me and just enjoy being in it in those physical classes. So that was the big difference than when I was taking yoga in graduate school, and at home. So yeah, just a different kind of reconnection to me. Um, Also being a wife, and needing that time. We all need this time for ourselves, um, whether we're in relationships or not. And so that was a very important um, time for me. It was also challenging as well. Just you know, to be completely honest, my spouse at the time didn't understand that I needed that time. And so, there was a little bit of friction, but I knew that I had to, this was important to me, and I had to, stand my ground and say, no, I'm going to take this, I'm going to do this. Mm,
Well, okay, so why was it so important? What was underneath that? You talked about obviously you're going to stand up for yourself and you're going to claim what you feel like your body needed, but
mhm.
why was that so important to you? What was the underlying drive to do that?
Yeah. So, um, before I became a yoga teacher, I worked in education. So I worked with the Chicago Public Schools, and I was an educational consultant. And so I worked with other school districts around the country. But when I worked here in Chicago, at schools, I was at work when the girls were in school. I was at work when my spouse was at work, and then I could be home in the evenings with the girls and doing all the motherly uh, duties.
Mhm.
But because we started going to classes in the evening or classes in the afternoon, my schedule changed. And so it took some of my responsibilities and put them on to somebody else. And so that was the cause of some of the friction, you know, because it's like, oh, this is the thing that you do, and now you're not doing it on these days anymore.
Sure, I understand that, and that makes sense in terms of the relationship. But I meant for you personally, what was driving you inside to want to claim that time and space for your body, no matter what else was going on around you?
Um, okay. I have a pretty strong will. um, and my mother was very adamant about teachers not labeling me as stubborn,
Mm,
but instead strong-willed. And when I believe that I need something to nourish me, when I believe that I need something that's going to be for my greater good, then I'll stand my ground and say, no, I need this. So I knew I needed this reconnection to my body, right?
what would have happened if you didn't try to get that reconnection?
You know, so here's the thing, you know, when we don't listen to our needs, right? When we don't listen to our intuition and our gut feelings, then we start to show up differently because
Mm,
we show up as people that are trying to please other people,
mm,
as
mm.
opposed to saying, no, this is what I need, and I need for you to understand that this is what I need. Um,
So
and
maybe
that
a bit
is
of losing yourself, right? If you're showing up to always please others, you tend to
absolutely,
lose yourself, right?
absolutely. And there is a sense of losing oneself when you know you become a parent or when you become a mother, just because of the whole nurturing um, and um, you know, responsibilities change when you become a parent, and so it's easy to lose oneself. I remember having this specific thought um, when I had my first child. The thought was, it's not about me anymore, it's all about her.
Mm.
And in that moment I thought, you know, that's a great thought to have, but when I think about it now, I'm like, that's awful. I mean, in the sense that I shouldn't have to lose myself because I've had a child, right? But um
What
instead
what would
finding
it
a
have meant to
balance
lose yourself though? What would it that have meant? What was the worry or the threat or the concern of losing yourself?
of losing myself, losing my identity, you know, and living for other people, living for other people, and not following through with the dreams that I have.
Yeah. Mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah. So then the yoga allowed you to reconnect. So the reconnection with your body, how did
Mhm.
that help you feel like you were getting back on that path or not losing yourself?
The movement, I think, and movement had always been huge for me because of my life as a dancer since, you know, a young child. And so that reconnection was like, ah, yes, this just feels so good to be back in my body, to be back present in my body, be feeling in my body. And I often describe my practice as a moving meditation because I can easily just drop into the movements. So when I do practice, I wear glasses, but when I do practice, I take my glasses off. And when I take my glasses off, I can't see. So I have to listen. I have to listen to you know, if I'm a student in a class, I have to listen to the instructor. And I can easily close my eyes and really go internal.
Wow.
And so that's why I call it a moving meditation,
Wow.
because it's just, you know, it's just me moving
Yeah.
um, and
You-
getting.
You're closing off some of your senses to be able to redirect your focus where you want it most, right? Internally into your body. So you're sensing your body and
Mhm.
the way it moves. And how does that make you feel as you do that? Like what you mentioned, you sound it feels so good, but um, Is there anything else you can tell us about that experience, about dropping into your body?
I think, well, I think that just like you just mentioned, the removal of some of the senses, right? Like really truly helps you get in tune with other senses. So by closing my eyes, um, like I can really tune into what this hip stretch feels like,
Mm.
right? I
Hmm.
can really tune into if I do it on one side, it feels like this,
Hmm.
as opposed to if I do it on another side or the other side, it feels like this, and that this could be the same or it could be different, right? And that tuning into that, just like bodily sensations, tuning into breath, tuning into thoughts, all with my eyes closed and everything, gives me a better sense of like where I am, you know.
Yeah. But as you describe that, and you talk about the attention you're paying to your body, what I'm feeling, what I'm getting in talking with you about this is a sense of nurturing yourself, a sense of self care, self compassion, self love.
For sure.
Yeah.
For sure. And self-love could be noticing that, one hip feels different than the other. That's interesting. I wonder why that is. This is
Being
a thought
curious.
process, right?
Hmm.
Oh, maybe it has to do with that car accident that not me
Hmm.
really, but that car
Yeah.
accident,
Yeah.
that I had a few years ago. That's so interesting. And then it just translates into other parts of life, right? So, if I'm going for physical therapy, or if I'm going to a doctor, I can have a more informed discussion with these health professionals because it's like, you know what I noticed when I really dropped into me? I noticed that this feels different here than it does over here. And I
Mhm.
just find that interesting. And what do you have to say about that?
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
That,
So
that creates for a more informed discussion with your doctor. Absolutely.
for sure.
Well, so um, I kind of interrupted you in explaining your journey. So you're through. You had your children. You're going to yoga sessions with your friend. What happened after that?
So while we were in classes, they kept announcing that there was a teacher training coming up. And the first probably 10 times I heard that, I thought, man, they're not talking to me. And then by the 11th, 12th time, I thought, maybe, maybe, maybe they're talking to me.
Yeah,
And
you and I have talked about like when things repeat and you encounter these repetitive things, it's probably a message you need to pay attention to, right?
For sure. Yeah, right. So, because my previous career in education called for me to facilitate professional developments, I was not afraid of public speaking. I wasn't afraid of standing in front of a group of people. And I had the skills to disseminate information and to guide people. I already had those skills to guide people through
Mhm.
movement, but I just needed to hone them and to be trained. I say that to say that I wasn't afraid. A lot of well, one big thing that holds people back from signing up for teacher training is like the fear of public speaking. It's like, oh, I can't speak in front of people, but I never had that. And so I thought, well, of course I should do this, right? Um, and then as we are really good at doing, I talked myself out of it.
Oh, is that right?
Right. Yeah. Yeah. So
How did that happen?
there was a summer session and I was like, I don't know. Who am I to be doing this? All those little,
Voices,
words that we
yeah.
say to
Mhm.
ourselves. I guess on some level you could think of it as imposter syndrome, is like, I'm not good enough to do that.
Right.
When the truth is, of course I am. Of
Yeah,
course I
yeah,
am.
yeah.
And if it's scary, that's fine too. You
Hmm.
know, it can be
Hmm.
scary. So when they had another round of it, And they announced it. I was like, "Here, take all my money, take it," because I want to sign up.
Okay, so and I love where you're going with this, but I wanted to pause and ask you about this because you said something I thought was really interesting. All of it's interesting, of course, but you said it's okay to be scary. It's okay for it to be scary.
Mhm.
That is how do I say this? That's an amazing perspective, right? Because obviously, a lot of people will take on the mindset that if something is scary, that means you're supposed to stay away from it because it's scary, right?
Mhm.
But you kind of flipped that around. You said it's okay. I'm comfortable with it being a little scary. So how do you do that? Like how do you come to that?
Okay, so I think my whole life, I've been, um, whether knowingly or not, been put in to uncomfortable
Mhm,
spaces,
mhm.
and have learned a great deal of resiliency because of that. And trust me, I'm not running around like I'm so resilient. I'm so resilient. Give me all the battles because like I literally say to myself like at least 3 times a week, like I'm good. Like
Mhm, yeah,
I don't
yeah.
need any more lessons. I don't need to go through any more tough times. I got the resiliency down. But uh, I was adopted as a child, and so I spent the first couple years of my life in foster care.
Mhm.
And that not meaning that I was with a family, but I was in the foster system, right? And so for the first 2 years of my life, which I don't remember, but I do believe that because I wasn't with a family, that I had to develop some kind of skills uh, to survive.
Yeah.
Um,
So you were challenged and you accepted the challenge, it sounded like, and you were looking for ways to handle that. You were developing some things on your own.
well, I had no choice, I
Yeah.
would
Yeah.
say,
Yeah.
right?
So sink or
Right?
swim kind of thing. Yeah.
Absolutely,
Mhm.
absolutely. But then this, and it's funny you say sink or swim too, because this has repeated throughout my life.
Mm.
So when I was finally adopted, my mother enrolled me in swim classes. And at that point, at the YMCA, the way that they taught you how to swim was to throw you in the deep end.
Yeah. Yeah. That's that old school way. My
Right?
aunt learned that same way too from my uncle. Yeah. That's pretty drastic.
It is. And as an adult, I asked my mom, I was like, how could you sit there and watch that? And she's like, well, all the parents did, all the mothers did. And it was just how you all were taught. And so when you're thrown in the deep end, what do you do? Now, this Y did also have another rule too. So their rule was we're going to throw you in, you have to swim to the other side. If you swim back to the same side, we're going to keep doing it until you go to
Yeah.
the other side.
Yeah. Yeah.
So, after a couple of times of like, no, I'm afraid to go to the other side and swimming back and realizing that you're going to have to keep going through this process until
Wow.
you decide.
Wow.
Right? So that parallels so much
Yes, it
in
does.
life,
Yes, it
right?
does. Wow.
Right?
That's
And
such a
like
great
the
example.
lessons that we
Sorry you
learn.
had to go through it, but it's a great example. But anyway.
I know, I know. But another example of like I did not have this choice, right?
Mhm.
I didn't have the choice. If I kept coming back to the same side, they were going to keep throwing me in. So when we talk about how this parallels with like life lessons, right? It's like, oh, you keep choosing the same partner. Okay.
Mhm. Been there.
Right. And so and you keep making those same decisions. When are you going to swim to the other side? Right. And
Wow.
swimming to the other side might be
Wow.
a challenge. It
Yes.
might be really
Really
difficult.
uncomfortable.
Yeah, right,
Yeah.
right. And it might seem like you're going to fail. It might seem like you're going to drown. It might seem like you'll never make it. But then, with the next stroke, you never know. Like the side is right there, right? And
Wow.
and you've come through that. So um there are other instances in life too where it's just the same thing that has built up the resiliency, um so that when I'm faced with a challenge, I know it might be hard. I
Yeah.
know it might be difficult. It
Mhm.
might make me feel uncomfortable. It might make me honestly want
Mm.
to go in the corner and cry.
Yeah. Sure. Yeah.
Because it's
Yeah.
like, I don't want to
Don't
do
want to face
this,
this. Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
But what is the other side?
Yeah. It's so powerful. Such an amazing story in terms of learning how life really works. I mean, I try to tell my children all the time, it's like we often have to do things that we don't want to do. Life
Mhm,
is not without that. You have to work through things sometimes that you don't want to do. But I
mhm,
forget the other part you just said. I don't say that to them. Now I'm going to start saying it to them, which is that what's on the other side? Like, what's on the other side? What's the benefit of doing that? Right?
mhm,
What do
mhm.
you get as a result of going through that process, which is so
Absolutely.
powerful?
I have a quote that I leave at my desk so I can see it every single day, and it reads, "You must learn to trust that there is a future waiting for you that's beyond what you might be able to grasp at this present moment."
Mm, mm,
Right? And
mm.
that trust is all you have to do, really,
Yeah,
right? It's
yeah.
just trust it while you're going through all of this stuff. Just trust it that the other side is where you want to get.
That's a life lesson even in of itself, to trust what you can't see, what you can't touch, that's wow.
Yeah.
So I keep interrupting you from your story.
Fine.
And so but I do want to ask you, because some of what we just talked about there was something that so many people um face, because as we're talking about like how you connect with yourself, how you connect with your body, how you heal yourself, there's a lot of people, as you and I discussed previously, that really would rather not, right? They'd rather just kind of, they think it's easier, right, to stay on that side of the pool, right, where you were thrown in, and not go to the other side, right?
Mhm.
And so why do you think it's so hard for people to engage in that way, to try and explore ways of healing themselves to get to
Yeah.
the other side?
Because it's hard
Yeah,
work,
yeah,
right?
yeah.
And if you tell me, for example, you could go swimming in the ocean, if either way, if you take this easy path here or if you go through this like mountainous region, right? Both of them are going to lead you to the same beach, to the same ocean. The easy path, you just walk, right? You don't learn any lessons,
For
nothing
sure.
along the way. You just get there and then you swim, right? Through the mountainous regions, it's like, oh my God, like I got to figure out like what are the proper kind of shoes that I should be wearing?
Mm,
Am I gonna need like what kind of clothes? Is it gonna get cold while I'm there? Am I gonna need to layer up? What if I fall? Do I need to, think about like some survival gear or whatever? But all of these lessons that you learn, taking the hard road, will benefit you way beyond that afternoon swimming in the ocean,
yeah,
right? But
yeah.
if you take this easy route, you don't acquire those skills.
Mhm.
So there are two ways to get there, right? And m- most people, including myself,
Sure.
right? I'm not immune
Yeah,
to
me
this.
too.
Most people will say, "Heck, I'm just gonna take that road."
Right,
I get
right.
more time in the ocean. I'm not gonna scrape my knees. I don't have to be thinking about all of this extra stuff. I can just go and enjoy my day. Um, and so,
But
um,
something you mentioned though about the mountainous path, which I thought was really interesting there, was that you talk about, preparing, having the right type of clothing, having the right type of shoes. What, as you were saying that, what came to me was like, you have to invest, right? You
mhm,
have to invest and you have to commit to the journey.
mhm,
But you're not necessarily going to buy the shoes, the jacket, and everything all at once. You may learn a lesson, say, oh, now I need to get some shoes because my feet hurt after stepping on this path, right?
For
So
sure.
you may incrementally have to change your approach
Hmm.
along the way, but remembering that it's a journey and that you're going to learn little lessons along the way that you can then adjust to, and that will help keep you going along that
Right.
path. Yeah.
Right. And that's how life is, right? It's like, oh, I took that challenge, and in that challenge, I learned these lessons about myself, right?
Yeah.
And so now I can adjust so that when I am challenged again, I'm better prepared to
You're more
face.
prepared, right?
Hmm.
Exactly. But I
Hmm.
think the other thing too is that when we talk about the fear of going down that path or that journey, it's remembering that it is a step at a time. It is that it's you may see the mountain and you may be afraid of the mountain because the mountain's so big, but really it's about that next step and the step after that and the step after that. And you're going to encounter things along that path that you didn't necessarily expect, that may make it easier for you, that may make it more challenging for you, but that you will eventually, if you just focus on the next step, get over that mountain,
Right,
right?
for sure.
Yeah.
And we know that growth is not linear,
It's not
right?
linear,
And
right?
so and so, all the setbacks, all the turns in the road, all of the falling down is a part of it.
This is part of it.
And yeah, and if we just
To be
welcome,
embraced.
yes,
Yeah.
right, right. And
Yeah.
so if we just welcome it and embrace it and just take it on,
Hmm.
um, then we have the opportunity to grow in ways that we never could had we not faced those challenges. So um yeah, it's so important for me to remind myself of that when I'm faced with challenges. Is always It's not always easy. It's
Hmm.
often very hard. And I think also the challenges that I've had have been with things that I have no control of,
Hmm.
right? So what are my triggers? And one, getting to know what
Hmm.
my triggers are,
Yes.
right? But then two, um, what do I do when I get dysregulated, right?
So how can yoga help with both of those things? Help you know, because many people have, everybody has triggers, but it's learning how to relate to them differently, right?
Hmm.
To acknowledge them, to relate to them differently, to not necessarily to learn how not necessarily to act on them,
Hmm.
but to kind of sit with them, and then, like as you said earlier, become curious about what brought that up, right? So how is yoga, your experience with yoga, helped you with working with your triggers and what comes after that?
Right. So many people, and it's not their fault, but they think of yoga as this physical practice because if you look on social media, this is what you see,
Yeah.
right? You see people getting all twisted up and bent in all sort of contortionist ways.
Which my
Um,
body can't do.
no, neither can mine, right? Um, and um, what I would like for people to know or to remember is that that is one aspect of the practice of yoga, but yoga is this practice for your whole being.
Mm.
And so while
It's spiritual.
movement, yeah,
Mm.
while movement um, helps to move energy throughout your body.
Mm.
There are other practices like breath work and
Mindfulness
meditation.
meditation, right?
Yeah,
Mm.
yeah, that are pivotal and complement the movement. And those are things that you can do when you're sitting in traffic frustrated,
Mm.
or
Mhm.
when somebody cuts you off, right? You
Mhm.
can take a deep breath in and a long breath out,
Yeah,
right? And
yeah.
so and these are things that you can just do wherever you are. You don't have to pull out your mat. You don't have to set aside a specific amount of time to do that. these things, these other practices, but you can incorporate them into into the triggers that happen without your knowing that they're going to happen, right? Because
Mhm.
it's always going to happen, but these practices can be really useful to helping us to regulate our nervous systems and instead of um, and I am a work in progress,
We all are. We all are.
right?
Yeah.
But not acting from ego, but
Yeah.
instead acting from spirit or tapping into spirit
Mm.
and and um, behaving in a way that would make ourselves
Or yeah, as the Buddhists would say, skillful, behaving
yes,
skillfully, right?
yes, yes, yeah. Um, and it's tough. It's tough. This is hard work to do, you know? And so I think that that is why, um,
It's hard, but it's possible. I
of
think that,
course.
it has taken me, because I told you I practice mindful meditation every day.
Mhm,
And it has taken me a while to learn how to relate to those triggers, to those things in a different way, right?
mhm.
Because previously I would, when I was younger, you had that trigger and you immediately react to it and you act on it and you
Mhm,
do something that is not skillful, right?
right.
And so you learn, now I've come to learn how to sit with those things, become curious about them, why it happened, why I'm feeling this way,
Mhm,
and acknowledge it. That's the important thing, to acknowledge the emotion behind it, because it's often when we dismiss the emotion has to go somewhere and it's going to come out if you
right.
don't really work with it.
Mhm,
And so that's what I've learned as a result of doing mindfulness, is just how to, and I bring all that up to say that because I think some people listening might say to themselves, well, I want to learn how to stop being triggered. And
mhm,
that's not necessarily the thing that you can or do, right? It's part of who you are.
right.
It's more about relating to those triggers differently so that you behave differently.
Absolutely. Because being triggered oftentimes is a result of somebody else's actions, right? And so we
Which you
cannot
can't control.
control,
That's
right?
right.
We cannot control other people and what they're going to do and why. And we can't control the timing of when they're going to do what they're going to do. The only thing we can control is ourselves,
Mhm.
right? How we relate to it, and how we behave, like you said, more skillfully.
Yeah, that is truly the most powerful skill that I've learned from practicing mindfulness. And I know that yoga and mindfulness, as you said earlier, they kind of they're related, they're intertwined, they're like almost like sister practices, and really they kind of cross over, right?
Mhm.
You can practice yoga mindfully. Are there other forms of self-care that you do, other ways that you connect, that you help yourself connect with your body, and that you help others to do the same?
Well, personally, what I do is try to curate like the world around me. Hmm. I'm very particular about my home. I'm very particular about who comes in it and who doesn't.
Mhm. Mhm.
I'm very particular about um, clearing my space. So I do have some practices like I burn sage.
Sage, yeah.
I burn also Palo Santos, incense.
Mhm.
A couple of other things that I do that may not be widely known is one, I'll have a bowl of salt in the corner of a room to attract the energy from that room.
Mhm.
And then periodically, I'll take that bowl of salt once it's attracted the energy and throw it out and
Mhm.
refill it, right?
Mhm.
So that,
Is that
um,
kind of like is that similar to what people do with those salt lamps, or
yeah,
does it seem,
yeah.
yeah, okay.
um, and then a friend of mine taught me this technique, and she's also very spiritual, which is why we're best friends. But but if I have to have a difficult conversation on the phone, What I will do is fill a glass of water, place the water next to me while I'm having the conversation, and then once that conversation is over, then the water has absorbed the
Oh,
energy. And
interesting.
yes, take the water and then throw it out.
Wow. Okay. All right.
Yeah,
Yeah.
but then even broader, like in addition to meditation and breathing practices or pranayama, the way that we reference it in Sanskrit in yoga, um, in addition to those, I also I read self-help books.
Mm.
I listen to podcasts on mindfulness. Um,
What are
I
some of your favorite books, or maybe one or two favorite books or podcasts
mhm.
that you have?
so m- what has helped me more recently as far as books and resources um, has been um, Iyanla Van Zant
Hmm.
is one of my most favorite because um, I like her delivery. She just, gives it to you.
Hmm.
Right. And
Very direct. Yeah.
yes, yes. And so I do appreciate that. Um, the Another author that I enjoy is Bell Hooks. Um, and I'm currently reading All About Love, um, which is an interesting read, and I think that people should um, pick it up because it talks about love and how we embrace love, how we learn about love in all of our experiences in life, and how we can return to love. So I'm currently in it, and I enjoy it. And so podcasts, I'll tell you. Some podcasts that I'm interested in, or podcast subjects that I'm interested in,
Hmm.
are more on the spiritual
Hmm.
sides of things. So I love listening to podcasts about intuition and trusting yourself, and how the universe is here and it provides for us, and we don't have to worry. And so those kinds of reminders are really, if we could get back to that word, nourishing for me.
Hmm.
Again, because I think one, on this most basic level, is like this reminder that I'm not here alone trying to figure this whole human
Yeah.
life experience
Yeah.
out,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah. There's
Um,
something more. There is
oh,
something more. Yeah.
much bigger. Yeah, much bigger than I could ever even imagine.
Hmm.
Um, and as I believe um, in, because I'm a believer in the universe, right?
Hmm.
And the universe has a plan. And so when I put my faith into that, I don't have to worry, right? I don't
Hmm.
have to live in the framework or the sense of scarcity and lack, and there's not enough to go
Hmm.
around and all of that, because the universe will provide for me. And so I'm okay.
Living faithfully. Yeah. Yeah. I think that's an area where I'm struggling right now. But like you, I have been trying to connect to um other content that is spiritually oriented. And in fact, this, you mentioned about intuition. I'm reading this book called Find Your Inner Voice, and it's pretty much about understanding how to connect with your intuition and your instinct, which the book distinguishes between the two.
Mhm.
And so I found that this book to be very fascinating, and I'm maybe only about a tenth of the way through, but it's been really enlightening for me thus far. Have you heard of that book?
I have now, and what I would say is that the more that you start to listen and follow your intuition,
Yeah,
the stronger the connection gets.
that's great to know.
Right?
That makes me happy because I'm really working hard to try and do that, because I tuned it out for so much of my life.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, intuition, but then also intuition and manifesting,
Hmm.
right?
Mhm.
Um, and not just like I want these things,
Right,
you
right,
know.
right,
I mean,
right.
because it's bigger, it's broader than that. But um, I encourage people to um, just have a play with it, right?
Mhm.
When when your intuition is talking to you, it's like you have this deep knowing. You might not know why you have this
That's
feeling,
right. Yeah.
right? But it's this like deep knowing, and you may not know why until
Yes.
months
It's revealed
later,
to you later. Yep.
years later.
Mhm.
Right, right. And so, I just had this instance come up with something happened a couple days ago related to something about 6 months ago. And I'm like, that was my intuition. I knew it. I knew it. In the moment, I was like, because I was talking to someone and I asked a question and the response, I was like, that doesn't make sense.
Yeah. Yeah, 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 yeah. Well, let me tell you something. That is a whole separate
I know.
episode. If maybe some point in the future, if you're willing to come back, we could talk about that because I got stories to tell about not ignoring my intuition, ignoring those feelings, right? Those
Yeah.
things that are definitely there. Like I knew they were there, but I was
Yeah.
like, I just dismissed them and
Yeah.
ignored them. And it got me in trouble every single time.
Every single time.
Yeah.
Every single
Yeah.
time.
Yeah. Yeah. So Monica, we are actually over the time that I promised to be with you. So, but it's been wonderful. Tell us about your business. What it is you do, how do you help others, and where they can find you.
Sure. So I've been teaching yoga since 2012. Before 2020, I was teaching in person. In 2020, I transitioned everything online and created my own online yoga studio. And I have members from around the world
Mhm.
that
That's
join.
awesome. Mhm.
So because I have a background in education, I've always hmm, wanted people to, even in yoga classes, to understand what it is that they're doing and why, right?
Mhm.
I
Mhm.
mean, we can get on the mat and roll around for an hour or whatever, and you could leave and feel blissful and, not be
Mhm.
thinking anything. But I love to teach people like your shoulder is moving like this because dot, dot, dot,
Yeah,
right?
and
Or,
you've done that for me when we've worked together. Yes,
right,
absolutely. You
right,
explain the mechanics of the body and how it works and
for
why it
sure.
works. Yeah.
Right. And back to the point that this helps people have more educated conversations with their health professionals if they need to,
It
right?
also makes it easier for them to buy into it because if they understand why they're doing something, then it allows them to commit to it more
For sure.
easily.
For
Yeah.
sure. So, so my online studio is also like a teaching studio. So I have videos in there that teach you why we do this thing, right? So if you've taken a class and you're like, I wonder why we did that in that class, there are videos to explain, so or tutorials to explain. So that was really important for me to cultivate as this not just a place that has a bunch of classes, but a place of learning. So that's one thing that I do is work with students in the group class format online. But I also have private clients that I meet with either in person or also online. And I have also transitioned to now working with yoga teachers and teaching
Mhm.
yoga teachers how to build a business. We were not taught this in teacher training. And there really is not a place where teachers can go and take some continuing education and like teach me how to run a business. And so that's what I do with yoga teachers is I coach them to learn how to diversify their offerings. So they are not married to just teaching in-person classes because in 2020 that hit a lot of yoga teachers really hard, right?
Mhm.
Yoga studios closed.
Yeah.
um, either for good or for a period of time. And as entrepreneurs, we have to learn how to take care of ourselves,
Yes.
right? And not put this in somebody else's hands. But how are you going to be resilient, right?
Hmm.
And how are you going to take control over what it is that you want to teach? The beauty about me having my own online yoga studio is if I have students that say, hey, we want like you to do this, or we want this kind of workshop. I don't have to go to a studio manager and say, hey, can you put me on the schedule? How much are you going to pay me? You
Right.
know,
Right. Right.
all of that. It's like I can create it,
Yes.
period.
Yes. Truly
Right?
being an owner of your own destiny. Yeah.
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 Absolutely.
So, and that's the part that I love about it. I feel like I'm only um, limited by my creativity,
Hmm.
the level of creativity that I have, and my ability to listen to what students want. And I can, the sky's the limit. I can create whatever I want. You know?
So, all right. So if you're wanting to learn more about yoga, you want to learn how to practice, you want to help yourself be more healthy, more and increase that mind-body connection. Also, if you're a yoga instructor and you want to learn how to grow your business, how can people find you? Where should they go?
Right. So my website is www.enhanced-body.com. And
So the
my,
hyphen between enhanced-body.com. Yeah.
yes,
Okay.
yes. And on social media, Instagram at Monica Seabright.
Okay. Monica Seabright. Okay.
Yes, yes. Um, There was one thing that
Mhm.
I would like to add
Yeah, please do.
about the things that I do
Yes, please do.
to curate, my experience through life. And it's social media is huge because social media is a place where we can really go down rabbit holes. And that's why I'm afraid of TikTok, because every time I go
Mhm.
on TikTok,
Yeah,
it's like
you
it's
get lost.
2 hours has passed.
Yeah.
But really following accounts that are good for you,
Yeah.
following accounts that don't make you feel less than,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
Don't make you feel like, oh, I'm not good enough,
Yeah.
or this person is doing the thing that I want to do and I'm not doing it. Um, that's how we can really get in trouble on social media. But
Mhm.
if you surround yourself with accounts that you love, like that, one of my favorites is one that just gives like self-care tips
Mhm.
every day,
Mhm.
how to regulate yourself every day. Right? I mean, but and so I don't need to see like other yoga teachers, right, on
Mhm.
Instagram. But
Mhm.
what I love to see in my feed is are things that are going to nourish my
Nourishment.
life,
Yeah. Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
And so that's big. And so if you find that you when you see someone's account, it makes you feel um less than, optimal, just let it go. Don't
Yeah.
follow it.
Yeah. It
It
is
will
a
make your life
choice,
much
and we
better.
are a product of our choices. Absolutely.
Of course,
Yeah.
a product of our choices and a product of our thoughts too,
Yes. Yes.
right? Your thoughts like make up your life, and so as soon as we can get control of these thoughts and harness them and turn them into what's going to benefit us, the better, easier it's going to be.
Awesome. Awesome. Monica, this has been so fantastic. I've really enjoyed talking with you. Thank you so much for your time. You're awesome. I love working with you. And everybody out there, check out Monica Bright at enhanced-body.com or at Monica C. Bright on Instagram. Check her out. Thanks
Thank you.
again. All
Thank
right.
you.
Thank you for joining us today. I hope you were able to take some inspiration or something of value from today's show. To access all of the resources and links mentioned, please head on over to copeandchill.com, where you will find the show notes for today's episode. That's copeandchill.com. COPEANDCHILL.com. And if you want a video version of this very same podcast, check us out at Cope and Chill on YouTube. And for information about upcoming episodes and other information, check us out on Instagram at Cope and Chill. Please come back and join us again for next week's episode. But until then, take care of yourselves.